So I went back to my first school, like first main school this is.
Uh-huh.
Ah, and considering I'd had such a good time in that middle school, I
Oh,
didn't really want to be back at the old boys' school. Um, and that's when the turn of events happened. And then one of the other questions is about what could be better for the course. And that's when all my support network went down a little bit.
hello, my name's Jenna. I'm an online primary tutor and today I'm talking to Katie about how to become a secondary early careers teacher. She is a computing teacher, so I'm looking forward to chatting to her. If you are an ECT, let me know down in the comments down below. Thank you very much for joining me today, Katie.
Hi.
It's lovely to have you. Now, I reached out on Facebook asking for new teachers if they wouldn't mind to chat to me about the process of becoming an ECT, and you very kindly agreed, so thank you again. Now, originally did you want to go into teaching? What drew you to it?
I guess I've always been wanting to be a teacher. I mean, we just said that I'm a secondary computing teacher, but when I was in primary school, I did have the luxury of a dedicated primary school teacher for computing only, and she taught everyone.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
and I was kind of inspired to that, and I was like, I originally was like, I want to do primary school computing like her, but then I sort of grew up quite quickly and realized that actually that's a luxury. Not every primary school has like an individual specified computing teacher. Um, but yeah, so I've always been like into teaching and inspired by her. Um, so like whatever, and I remember I was like year 6 and looking into careers and stuff, and I was like, "How did you get into teaching?" And she's like, "I mainly volunteered at Brownies first, and that's how she got into like education and children and working with children and stuff." I was like, "That's a good idea." Um, so then I went into high school, and then I started sort of helping with transition events like open evenings and open days and that sort of thing. And then I think it was a year 7 or year 8. I entered a creative writing competition. This is like a side story, but I entered a creative writing competition with the local area. And then like, the following summer, they're like, "We're going to start the summer reading challenge." Now, for those people that don't know, the summer reading challenge is like a national, it was an initiative at the time, it's now not an initiative, but it's basically to try and get kids to read during the summer holidays and invite them into the libraries to do events and stuff. So I started volunteering for that, and I did it for 5 years because I loved it so much. Like
Oh, wow.
we we used to do sort of book events based on Gruffalo and like Harry Potter and stuff. And it was really good. It was like arts and crafts and stuff, and we used to take over the local park and do like orienteering things for the kids. It was really good. Hence why I did it for 5 years. Um, but yeah, so everything I've done is worked up to at least working with kids in education. Um, and then I went into a sixth form. My sixth form was attached to my school, so it was the same school. I've been there for 5 years, did 2 more years. Um, and then I started helping in like ICT lessons with the year 7s because obviously I was free. So like, as a sixth form, you have frees in the day. You only do 3 subjects. So then I started helping in like year 7 IT lessons, and that sort of geared me up more to sort of wanting to be teaching, and specifically IT because I loved IT, which is another side story, but yeah.
Well, when you look back then at your journey, it's kind of similar to mine. Everything that you did was some sort of element of teaching
Yeah.
without you realizing. Everything just seems to have flowed naturally. So then what pulled you then more to secondary while doing those ICT support classes?
Yeah, it was mainly helping with IT, and mainly because, like I said, I wanted to primary school originally, but then obviously I realised that primary school computing teachers are like the minority instead of majority,
Right.
and finding a job like that would be quite
Yeah.
difficult. And obviously the teacher recruitment crisis for secondary computing teachers. and I knew my degree was going to be in computing anyways because I'd always been geared to going down that route. Um, so yeah, it's just the sort of alignment of jobs more than anything.
Right, lovely. Well, that's totally understandable because often when you look into something and you think, oh, I can't actually do that because of that reason. So then what was the process like of deciding how to train to be a teacher? Why did you zone in on PGCE originally?
So I went to Edge Hill University to do my undergrad. Um, and obviously I'm gonna go to sort of via undergrad first. So I went and looked at 5 different unis for undergrad. Um, I decided to do my degree first, and then if I decided to back out of teaching, I wasn't sort of stuck in the education route, if that makes sense. So I thought if I do my computing degree, I'm not sort of stuck in education if I decide to back out of it.
Mm.
Um, so then I started looking at universities. I kind of wanted to get away from my local area because of family issues and also just general issues with the area. So I looked a bit further afield, and like I say, I ended up at Edge Hill University. And at the time, I don't know if this is the same now, but it drew me in because they have this like augmented reality cave thing
Oh,
in the tech building that they have. And at the time, I don't know if this is true now, but at the time they were the only university to have this thing. So that kind of drew me in. And the fact that it's a campus-based uni and all that sort of stuff as well. But that's university, not. And then for those people that don't know, Edge Hill is behind, like their history is behind women education. Um,
okay, that's interesting.
yeah. So Edge Hill's education history was, I believe it was a women's teacher training college before it turned into a
That's a good
university.
link to your career. That's lovely.
Um, so Edge Hill themselves are quite known for teaching in general because of its history. The colours are all to do with the suffragette movement as well. So the gowns and the logos are all purple and green because that's the suffragette colours. Um, all to do with women and teaching and education. Obviously, it's got other courses now, but at the time, that's to do with history,
That's
the history of it.
fascinating.
So that kind of drew me in as well because like I knew I wanted to go into teaching, so I was like, I can do it all in one place. I can stay there for 4 years, which in theory was a good thing because it was the year pre-COVID. Also, we didn't know what COVID was going to bring like.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
so when I was looking at universities, I was like, I'll be here for 4 years because I can do my teacher training year at the same time and that sort of thing. And then obviously COVID happened in my first year and then kind of lost 2 years at home. Um, so at least I had my teacher training year to sort of gain back a year as well. But yeah, so um, so yeah, I always knew that I'd probably do my PGCE with their chill, just because of the fact that of the history, you know,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
it's good that route and the fact that I knew I was going to do my undergrad there as well, so I had that familiarity as well.
Is that chill in London?
Ormskirk, just outside Liverpool.
Oh, I don't know why I thought it was London. Oh, okay then. So you enjoyed your degree, enjoyed
Yeah,
learning about computing, and that was a smart move to go into something in case, like an overview of a subject rather than directly into teaching, because you can do
yeah,
teaching degrees.
yeah.
It was an option when I was training. So you kind of opened up, which is a good idea because, like you say, if you don't like teaching in the future, you can do something else linked to your degree. What was the process like applying for a PGCE? What did you have to do?
So
Was it
I
a
applied.
smooth transition?
It was quite smooth because obviously I was already at the university and they were already in my third year. They were always on about graduate jobs and careers and that sort of thing. So they're already drilling in that teacher training was an option. Especially at the university, they were like, "Come and stay with us because we're
Yeah,
at
they'd
chill."
rather you stay, yeah.
I mean, I kind of already planned to stay, but it was quite funny in the lectures when they were trying to sort of, promote the university again to other undergrads. Um, so yeah, I applied I graduated in 22. Yeah, so I applied in no, it was early in November 21, in readiness for September 22. Because they always say that places get taken quite quickly at Edgehill because it's quite popular for teacher training. Um, so I applied quite early. I think the applications are open like all year, but I was like, I want to get my place, get it sorted, and also focus on my third year because obviously dissertations, due and that sort of thing. So yeah, I applied. It's quite similar to UCAS, in the fact that you apply to 3 universities instead of the 5, but and it's also free. You don't have to pay for the UCAS fees or whatever because you do it through the Department of Education website, so it's free.
Okay.
Well, it was for me anyways. I don't know if they've changed it. They probably have known the
So
government.
if you are researching, anyone watching this, obviously just check yourselves if you're looking at Edgehill.
But yeah, so I applied to 3 universities, Edgehill being one of them, and then 2 others. You had to do a personal statement, so why you wanted to teach, how your suitability to teaching. So obviously I mentioned all my volunteering experience, my fact that my degrees in computing. My dissertation was also going to be education and computing, so I could mention that. And then you sit quietly and wait, and see if you get into any interviews, which I thankfully did. Again, my interview was online because it was sort of post-COVID.
And how was it online?
So much like this, it was me talking to someone about why I wanted to go into teaching, basically talk through my application that I'd already sent to them. And then I also had to do a sort of 5-minute mini teach thing. They gave me a topic. I think it was like programming or something like that. How would you teach this area of programming? But not like a full-blown like teaching thing. You just had to like talk about it. Like, this is what I'd do for my starter. This is what I'd do for the main bit and that sort of thing. But yeah, it was that sort of post-COVID where everything was still online and not quite got back to normal. So it was quite weird doing a teaching interview like this. But yeah, so that's how I kind of applied, and then obviously got the interview. We'll go into this a bit later, I think, but because I was a cover supervisor at the time, and the fact that I'd been DBS checked then, was already working in schools, the person that was interviewing me, who would be my future course leader, was like, oh, and like shocked that I was already in the schools and working. So he kind of just offered me this place there and then because he was quite shocked that I was already physically in the schools. So yeah, I like kind of got a place given to me there, subject to my degree results, because you need at least a 2-1, I think, or at least 2-2, for teacher training. And then yeah, I got my place. I got the email to confirm everything. And then obviously you have to go through the DBS check and all that sort of thing. But yeah, it was quite simple for me because I knew where I was going and what I wanted to do, and like, albeit I had to do a little bit of research how to apply because it's different to the UCAS application. But yeah, it was all going good.
So just taking a slight detour then. So when did you start the cover supervisor role? Was that while you were doing a degree?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, how did you manage both?
So I started cover supervising in my second year, towards the end of 2020. So obviously we'd gone through the first COVID lockdown. I'd gone back to uni for my second year. And then, like a typical student, I was looking for a part-time job. I was scrolling through Indeed and other job websites, and it came up for a recruitment agency that was like unqualified cover teachers needed, because at the time of the COVID, if a kid tested positive, it'd kick all the staff out because, contact and all that. So they were just basically recruiting anybody that had some sort of experience with kids, that had a DBS check. So I thankfully, because of my volunteering experience that I had previously, that I didn't, done everything to go into education. This was my way into school again.
Oh wow.
So I applied. They rang me up the following day, basically saying because of the COVID situation, we just need people at the moment. Um, Obviously you need to go through the DBS check. We'll have a couple of references off your uni tutors. But apart from that, you're good to go into schools and do cover work because they needed people because it was COVID. It was like the pandemic. We were just coming out of it. So yeah, and thankfully because uni was still a bit online, day to day online, I could sort of do 2 days cover in like 3 days uni or whatever. So yeah, it was a bit crazy. And like I say, it was a bit of a crazy way to get into cover teaching, but it was
I've
COVID.
never
Everything was.
heard of that ever. I've never heard of a cover teacher who's also doing a degree. So did you do primary or secondary or both?
I did secondary, which was bizarre because at the time I was about 20, the kids were like 16 or under, so like there was only like
I bet that
4
was
years between
awkward.
us. But I kind of set a trend because then the agency does this refer a friend thing, and I sort of told my friends that I got a job at cover supervising, and they were all working at the bars that were getting closed for lockdown and stuff. I was like, well, you can come and work with me and come into schools if you want. And like it set a trend when I've
Uh,
noticed quite a few of my friends. I referred a few of my friends to the agency, um, just because we needed people. The schools, not we, but
uh,
the school, the education system needed people to just cover.
and what did the lessons look like? Obviously, with lockdown times, they were very, very different at that point.
Thankfully, it was just I did sort of stylize it as glorified babysitting, to be honest, because you were literally there just to watch the kids. The cover work is always set for you. Even now, when you do cover work, you just it's kind of already set for you by the teachers or the teachers that are there, the department. Um, so yeah, you literally just get like the role of a cover supervisor is just to watch the kids through a pre-planned exercise and do it with them, and make sure they just behave to some extent as much as you can as a cover supervisor who doesn't know the kids. Um, so yeah, so cover supervising is quite difficult because obviously you get the sort of tail end of the kids' behaviour and you're not the usual teacher. They'll take it out on you. You don't know them, they don't know you. But at the same time, it's quite fun because you see all these kids, you see all these different schools. And as someone who wanted to be a teacher, it was a good way to sort of get experience at the same time.
So it didn't put you off.
I was like, it's COVID, it's going to be different. Anyways, everything's
Yeah.
different about COVID. So, yeah.
Yeah, when you hear some of the stories from teaching in COVID, like teachers having to teach in a corridor and teach two classes
Yeah.
of children at home and everything, it was
It
just,
was it was quite interesting because I went to one school. I won't try and say the name, but I went to one school in the local area, and at the time it was still like not post COVID, but it was in the middle between the first and second lockdown. Um, and I went in, and they're like, "You've got a full day of maths with the same class," because they were doing it. Sort of the kids stay in one classroom and do the same subject all day, so that they don't move. And I was like, 5 hours of maths with the same kids. You've got to be joking, right? And they weren't. I literally had to sit in the same classroom for 5 hours with the same kids, on repeat. Um, that was interesting because, like, obviously as a cover supervisor, I went into other schools and every school had different ideas. But that one confused
and
me
why
a
did
little
you have
bit.
to do maths all day? Like, what was the thinking behind that?
That's the I say issue with cover supervising. You get given whatever subject is needed that day.
Right.
Um, Especially as someone who was unqualified at the time as me. Like now I can sort of, if I wanted to go cover supervising, I can maybe specify computing because that's what I'm trained in. But at the time, I was sort of not qualified. I was just doing it to fill a gap. And if it was maths teachers off, then I'll be doing maths. If it's history, it'd be history. You just get given whatever you get given at the day.
So then, we'll move back onto the PGC in a second. But when did you finish the cover supervisor when you qualified, or a bit after?
So I went all through second year and third year doing it. But I stopped sort of January time at my third year just to focus on my dissertation because I thought that's like a big chunk of your course. So I stopped and I went back once my dissertation was complete. So that's a good thing about cover supervising, especially where I was. They were quite flexible with me sort of dropping out and then coming back and again. So I did a few more weeks towards the end of summer of my third year. Obviously, kids break up in July, so it was a little few weeks. And then obviously I stopped again in September because I was doing my teacher training. But then I went back again in June. So they were quite flexible in the fact that actually I'm doing this now.
Oh wow! When you told me off camera on our messages that you done a cover super, I presumed, oh, teacher training, cover, then a job. But no,
No,
you managed it all.
I've managed it all somehow.
So let's go back to your PGCE and the process getting onto the PGCE. You talked about that. Now, can you give tips for the application for getting onto the PGCE for others that are doing it?
So me especially, I used the career service at Edge Hill. They've got a good career service there that was good to get my personal statements right, make sure I was in the word count because I think it had to be 600 words or something stupid like that. You know, it was small.
You've got to get to that count.
You know, it sounds crazy writing just 600 words, but like when you're trying to talk about yourself and the reasons why you want to go into teaching, it's quite hard, especially from someone who struggles talking about themselves. So yeah, I went to the career service quite a lot. I'm hoping other universities have career services. They were a good help. There's also a good get into teaching website where you can get an online advisor from them. So they're quite good because you can get in contact with them. I didn't really use them as much because I had the sort of personalised service with the uni who knew me more. But that is quite a good service if you don't have the sort of facilities around you. I mainly just say show you're passionate, show your reasoning why you want to go into teaching. So obviously I had all my volunteering experiences because I knew I wanted to go into teaching. The fact that I wanted to do computing because it's a you know, sort of subject not seen as for girls, and that's my reasoning of going to teaching. So, you know, I wanted to go into computing to inspire girls into computer science because it's not seen as that subject. So I mentioned that quite a lot, and I kind of also referred to like news headlines and news articles that is going on. So in my sort of statement, I obviously looked at like Ofsted reviews and BBC News and be like, you know, even a teacher tap app that's used in education. I referred to like news articles and was like, this is why I want to go into teaching because there's a teacher recruitment crisis because like 21% of computer science entries were only girls. And it shows that you know about the education system as well and what is currently going on.
That's brilliant. Thank you for that advice. And I think it would be really, really helpful. If anyone watching this video has got any other advice for someone applying to a PGCE, let us know in the comments down below. So then let's talk about your actual PGCE. Let's focus on the highlights to begin with and things you feel that could have been improved in your opinion.
When you sent me this question earlier, I was like, I don't look fondly on my PGCE. And
that's quite common for a lot of people.
It was like I say, I was fully motivated. I was fully wanting to go into PGCE, like teaching, but that year took it out of me. So I mean, all different universities and teacher training providers have different ideas. So, but the way that Edge Hill currently they probably change it knowing my luck. But when I was doing it last year, so you spent a month in university first, September to
Right.
October, where they drill in education theory, behavior management and that sort of stuff. So you spend a month there, and then get sent out onto placement in October. The first week, I did a week in a SEND school, because you've got to sort of, that's one of the requirements of the teacher training providers, that you've got to sort of see like an SEND school. So I spent a week there. That was good. I mean, it was different because it's SEN, and obviously the class numbers are quite small. There's quite high dependency kids on there. There's like a lot of kids in wheelchairs and like high mobility issues. So that was a really good week. And then you go out to your main placement. So it was like sort of second week into October, I went into my second main placement. I was sent to an all boys school.
Oh, okay.
That was my first slight issue, because obviously as a young female teacher in the world of hormonal teenage boys was not the idea I was having. Especially because I remember full well in my interview I said I want to go into computer science specifically to inspire girls, and I was like, you've sent me to a completely different concept. I embraced it anyways. My mentor, we got on, albeit he had 20 years experience, so like I think he slightly forgot what it'd been like to be a trainee teacher. But it was fine. We got on. I was doing Key Stage 3. I did a bit of iMedia, which is another course sort of linked with computer science. And it was a different school in the fact that they do start GCSEs in year 9. So that was a different concept as well, that I'd never been in with supervisor either. So it was a 2-year Key Stage 3 instead of the 3-year. But yeah, that was fine. I went back to uni for 2 weeks before Christmas for more theory, more content. Then you go on to Christmas holidays for 2 weeks, and then you come back to university after New Year. And then I had 2 more weeks of theory content, and I was just like, it's draining. Like, I found that so draining, going back and forth to campus in uni, and then going back onto placement.
Do you think that was overkill, do you think, on the theory?
It wasn't, not necessarily overkill. Well, maybe if it was just more spread out. Because you spend all these weeks on placement, and then you go back to campus. Especially I chilled with being a campus university. And then you like go back on placement, and it was very much,
a lot.
Yeah. So yeah, went back to uni for 2 weeks after Christmas, and then I went to my second school, which was a different sort of school. It was more deemed as more rough because of the area it was in, but I fully enjoyed that one because of the different concept it was. My mentor there, and at least one other member of staff that in my department went to Edgehill. So we clicked straight away. The other member of staff that wasn't my mentor, they all had their universities on the classroom doors, and I noticed he had Edgehill on his, and I was like, oh, so you went to Edgehill? And he was like, yeah, I did computing and all that. And weirdly enough, we kind of worked out that he did his teacher training year in my first year. So we kind of, there was that like correlate. I was like, we could have passed each other on campus and not even known about it. But hey, crazy turn of events. But yeah, I loved that placement. It was a different school because of the area it is. It's just outside Liverpool, so they gained a lot of refugees at the time. There was a lot of kids with English as a second language, so that was quite interesting to try and teach them programming when they didn't even know English. But hey, that's a different story. But yeah, I really enjoyed that placement, mainly because of staff. Feel like the staff make a school.
That's good.
And if you get on with the staff, you get on with the school, so to speak. Then you went back to uni after
back again.
back, it was about February half term, early March time. Went back to uni for 2 more weeks, and then I went back to my first school.
Oh,
So it
your
was
same school, SEND?
no, the all boys main placement school.
Right, okay.
So it was ABA, or home and away school they called it.
Oh, okay.
Um, so I went back to my first school, like first main school this is.
Uh-huh.
Uh, and considering I'd had such a good time in that middle school, I didn't
Oh,
really want to be back at the old boys school. Um, and that's when the turn of events happened. And then one of the other questions is about what could be better for the course. And that's when all my support network went down a little bit. So I had a link tutor. Now a link tutor links you with the school and the university, and they come and
right.
observe you and stuff like that. She left in March, April time. So my link tutor, my core person, left. I was then put with someone else who was part-time.
Oh, okay.
So you can see the issues I had here.
Yeah.
Um, and that's where it kind of all went downhill. So I was back in a school that I didn't really like as much as to my other
Mhm.
school. My link tutor had left. My support was just not really there.
Mhm.
I'm trying to not to sort of, disrespect some people, but because like I just generally don't know what happened. And by the sounds of it, I'm the minority, not the majority, because I spoke to everybody else and they were having a fine time, and I'm like, why is it just me?
Mhm.
And then obviously that support network, when me and my mentor was having a bit of issues because of it, um,
Was it
he
just that when you needed support with something, because they were part-time, you couldn't
I couldn't
get
I
that?
never yeah I couldn't get the university support. Me and my mentor didn't know when to contact them, whether we'd get a response because of the part time.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, it all went sort of into magical
Pear-shaped.
mystery. Yeah. Um, and that was basically like April to like May time. And then my uni tutor came in to observe me before May half term. The one
Mm.
and only time she'd observed me. And at that point, she was like, yeah, you could have done with extra support. And I was like, are you telling us now?
And how long was left at this point in the course?
Like 2 weeks, one being half term.
Oh, wow.
So then I was put on this cause for concern pathway, which is what they meant to put you on to help to support you.
Mm.
Um, and my mental health went down the hill. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, people say PGCEs are tough anyways, but
Mm.
that made it tougher because it was meant to be a support mechanism, but it was just more
Often than
targets.
not,
It
no.
was more targets. It was more paperwork. It caused more issues with my mentor. Whatever I did, he didn't think was good. Um, I'd go home. I had to get two buses from the school to my university accommodation. Um, I'd go home crying. I was not eating. I wasn't really sleeping. I even left my phone on the bus one night on the way home because my
Oh,
head was just not there.
yeah.
Um, and like I say, thankfully, it was only about a week to go. And I was like, I don't know if at that point I was like, I don't know if I want to just quit right now because this cause for concern pathway is meant to help me, but it's not really. Um, but I pushed through the week and somehow managed to pass my Viva, which is in theory what decides if you pass or fail the course. So I passed my Viva because I managed to talk my way through it, waffle my way through the questions they were asking me,
Mhm.
what I'd learned about the year. And because I did that, my Viva was then passing and in theory then passed the course. But my head was just messed at that point. Um, and then
Did
we're
you
gonna
need
go.
a break at that point?
I was thinking about not going to into teaching at that point.
Oh,
Um, I was applying for other jobs. I was like, I don't know if I want to be a teacher. Which sounds bizarre considering everything I've done up to that point. Um, yeah, it was a crazy year. Um, So yeah, I don't know where to go with this, but yeah, it was the most mental year. And like I said, the support wasn't really there. And but like I said, it sounds like I was the minority instead of the majority because I spoke to everybody else on the course and they were fine. It was just
Mm.
me, apparently. Um, yeah,
Not the only one though, because I remember when I was training to be a teacher and I knew someone that had done the PGCE, I didn't do that route. And by Christmas, 50% of the course had gone.
mm,
And that was quite common a few years back because, you know, in the media, a lot of people just think, oh, it's 9 to 3, easy
yeah,
job, in, out, da 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 da. Teaching great when the support is in place, like you said with that last
yeah.
school that you loved. And when the support's in place, you can do anything in teaching.
I was about to say well, I suppose we'll come into my ECT year in a minute, but it's just shown to me how key support is.
Mm, yeah, definitely. I went on supply after permanent, and the schools that were the best schools, and not in terms of outstanding or good or anything like that, the ones that ran really well were the ones where all the staff were supported on
Yeah.
all levels. So, to those watching that don't know what an ECT is, what does it stand for and what does it, well, I think we've kind of covered that actually, early careers teacher, but what is the process? Because it's totally different to how I applied. I did a work kind of a program for a year, but now early careers teachers have to do 2 years. So
Yeah.
what's involved with that?
Um, so I mean, I think one of the other questions was about interview process. But I managed to get into a job through supply because after the chaos of my PGT year, I went back into supply. Thankfully, I still had the contacts. I was like,
Okay.
um, I thought even if I decide not to go into teaching, it's a good way to work it out. Go into different schools, find if there is good schools out there, which I knew there is, but I was just trying to find them. So I went back to supply after my training year. It was only about 6 weeks until the summer holidays, but I thought, it's still something. Um, and then I was with one agency, but then I signed up with a second one as well because um they often work with different schools, so you can get into different sort of styles of school. Um, and it was my second agency that rang me one day. I was like, there's a school down in Warrington. Now, bear in mind, I was in sort of Ormskirk, Sefton area. So there's a school down in Warrington. Do you that needs someone for 3 months initially? Do you want to go down and meet the head of faculty and have a tour around the school and stuff? And bear in mind, this was like the last week before the summer holidays. So my method of getting my current job that I've actually just left, but that's another story. But the job that I've just finished, my method of getting into that job is a bit different to most ways people would normally get a job in. But like I say, I went and met the head of faculty in the last week of term, and we got on like a house on fire. She is now one of my
Oh,
closest friends. I met her kids, I met her partner. It's one of them sort of weird scenarios. But honestly, that first meeting just, calmed me down after the entire PGCE
oh,
fiasco. I told her everything, told her the story, told her the issues I had, the fact that I hated my PGC, the fact that I wasn't going to go into teaching because of it, um, and the fact that I'm only here because my agency managed to sort of sweet talk me into it. They're like, the school really like you and all that sort of stuff, the way that agency, try and sweet talk you into going to a school so they get a fee really. Um, but yeah, honestly, I clicked so well with the head of faculty. At the time, she was having a bit of staffing issues. 3 members of staff had left at that point. Um, so she really needed people to fill the gaps of the people that had left. But like I say, we got on a house on fire. There was like some similarities between our like careers. She also went to Edgehill, but she did it a different route. Her partner was from Leeds, where I'm from, and I was like, this is just bizarre. But yeah, we got on like so well. So I decided to take the 3 months initially because of the way we got on. I was like, you know what? Let's give the 3 months a go. Because then they were going to support me in the first term of ECT as well.
Oh,
Because
great.
they don't have to do that as agency. They don't have to
No, they
support you.
don't at all.
But they're like, we'll support you through the first term if needs be. I was like, great, I can take 1 year off, 1 term off anyways. But yeah, and then obviously I was only meant to be there for 3 months. So then they started advertising for someone to come back in into January to replace me. I applied because I was like, I actually love the school. Like going back to the support method, the school was so supportive, and the fact that my head of faculty is now like one of my closest friends. I was like, I don't want to leave, so I applied for the job that they were advertising to replace me, which sounds bizarre. But then it meant I was on the school books instead of the agency books.
Hmm.
So I applied for that, and I was like the only candidate.
Oh,
So I kind of just sort of, well, they kind of did a mini interview with me, but they didn't have to observe me because, I mean, the part of the ECT
yeah.
program is that you are observed by your mentor. So
Mm-hmm.
my head of faculty, who was also my mentor, was like, I don't need to observe her. I'm observing her anyways because part of the ECT program is to observe her. So they just spoke to the head of assistant head and was like, we'll just do a mini interview, ask you a few questions, and then we'll take you on into our books. So I managed to stay the year, thankfully. So yeah, the
And that was doing the ECT one then.
so yeah, that's my ECT one. It's been a bit complicated. I speak to everyone about it, and they're like, it's not the usual route of getting an ECT
Mm.
one job. Like I said, I came through agency originally,
Mm.
which is the most bizarre sort of method into it. But it was a great school. Like I say, I have just left now because my fixed term contract came to an
Mm.
end. But so I'm going to a new school in September. Um, but that first year has set me in a good place because
Mm.
I was in such a rough end after my PGCE,
Mm.
almost didn't go into teaching, and then I found the right school at the right time, I think. Um,
Okay.
even just the right person, like
Yeah,
that.
that inspirational person.
Yeah, my head of faculty was just the right person at the time. And I kept saying to her towards the end, I was like, "You've saved me," and she was like, "No, I haven't. You saved yourself." I was like, "Yeah, but
Um,
you're the person that helped me." Um, she won't take any credit to it for it. I gave her, I bought her a little gift at the end. I was like, and she's
oh,
like, I don't. I was like, Debbie, I'm gonna say Debbie because I was like, Debbie, you deserve it. You saved me. But she was like, no, I don't deserve
oh.
it.
You do need that inspirational person just to like get you back to who you are and what your passions are. And
Yeah,
when you are incredibly low, and all your life it seems you've been working towards this, and then one, not small, because that makes it seem insignificant, but one few weeks of your life can impact the rest of your life. And if you hadn't met that woman, you might
yeah.
never have gone into teaching. So let's look at ECT year one then. And in terms of what's expected of you, so you obviously had a mentor, and how
Yeah.
often did you meet up with Debbie?
So we met every week, once a week, obviously give or take, depending on
Mhm.
school events or whatever. Like we missed a couple towards the end of the year because of sports day and whatever,
Mhm.
but it is meant to be once a week. And interestingly, she had another ECT one in the department, so there was two of us,
Oh, okay.
which was quite good actually, because like I got, you know, he was a business teacher, but we were in the same department, so she had two of us to meet in the week. Um, which was quite interesting because she was the only member of staff to have two ECTs at the same time. But um, it was quite good. So yeah, once a week. They're meant to observe you once a week as well, but because obviously she had two to observe, it found it a little bit difficult. So I'm not going to try and get in trouble, but she didn't observe me every week because She had two of
That's
us.
a lot to manage, and I imagine her workload was insane as well.
Yeah, it was a little bit because there's two of us, and
What
but
do
yeah.
those meetings look like? Like, what would be involved in those
Um,
meetings?
so our ECT programs through Teach First. I think each provider has different things, but Teach First, they give you a topic each day, each week to discuss, um, which is linked to your online learning, which you get given to do as well.
Mhm.
Um, so you have to do online learning, which is, what your ECT time is given for, really, like extra
Mhm.
learning and CPD. Because as an ECT, you also get, I think it's 10% timetable reduction. So you don't have a full timetable just yet as the first
Is it
year.
one day you have PPA
Um,
and your other time, or was it separated?
because A, I'm a secondary school, and B, I had a 2 week timetable, so it wasn't really a full day. It was just dotted
Okay.
around. Um, but it's meant to be 10% of the timetable, I think. But yeah, there's times for PPA and then times for ECT. Through the ECT time, you're meant to do online learning, which is then linked to the topic of your mentor meeting. So it'd be like behavior management, or like now it's thinking of like group work, or like even just like using graphical representations, just little things about teaching that you might not think about day to day, but I found there was quite a lot of similarity to my PGC theory as well, which is one thing I didn't really like. I mean, the other ECT found it quite interesting because he didn't do a PGCE.
Okay.
He did it, I think it was a teacher-led way. So, he knew a bit of the theory, but not into the much depth I knew because I did the PGCE route.
Mm.
Um, so I did find a little bit of an overlap. Um, but yeah, so the mentor meetings are taking place through the meetings, uh, through the topics that you're meant to do each week through the online learning.
Okay.
If that makes any sense, I don't feel
Yeah.
like I'm blabbering on.
And how did you feel being observed every week? Was that quite intense?
In the first couple of weeks, yeah, because obviously I had flashbacks to my training year where everything I did was wrong. Um, I hated being observed during my training year because of that.
Mm.
Um, but Debbie, bless her, she relaxed me within the first couple of weeks. She's like, she always found a positive to talk about, which I thought
Mm.
was such a good route to do it, especially for me who had the issues. Um, but she did
Isn't
it for
that
both.
sad though that that's not the norm?
Well, yeah, but she did it for both of us. So part of the mentor meeting is also to discuss the observation as well. But she'd always try and find a positive. Well, she always would find a positive, whether it be, you know, get the school I was at. I always had a sort of entry method where they had to stand behind the chairs until the register was done. So like, even if it was just following that, it'd be a positive. The way I asked a question to a kid using cold calling, she'd always try and pick a positive. And then instead of what I wasn't doing right, she'd make it a target. And she didn't look at it as a negative, which
Mm.
was really helpful to me. Um, so that when she started coming in a bit more, I was like, right, it's fine. She can sit
She's
there
on your
and
side. She's not going to
yeah,
steer you wrong.
yeah. So yeah, I feel like, I mean, going back to that support thing, it's just the way people do it. Like
Mm.
with the observations and training, it was always what I wasn't doing.
Mm.
Um, but
And that doesn't help.
not really. But with ECT1, especially for me, it was different. Like the observations are different.
And what you know of ECT2 now that you're going into, will that be the same? Will it be an observation every week? Will it be a meeting every week? Or will it lessen?
Um, I'm at like I say, I'm at a new school in September, so
Right.
I'm also with a new provider, which is also interesting.
Oh, why
Um,
aren't you with Teach First anymore?
because my new school doesn't use them, so they're going to sign me up to a new provider.
So it's all
Um,
about who the schools were linked to, not
yeah,
you and your personal
yeah.
connection. Oh, I didn't realise.
So you just follow with the school. because they're on about sort of signing me up to the new one. I'm like, this is
Okay.
interesting. But like I've not needed any paperwork either. They've not asked for my ECT reports or anything, so it must be all linked somehow. And I'm just like,
Mhm.
I'll just sit here pretty and yeah. But I was talking to some ETT2s at the school that I've just left, and they were like, it's a lot less paperwork. You still have the mentor meetings, but it's less paperwork, less sort of online learning. The mentor meetings maybe happen once a fortnight instead of once a week. But you still have that support there because you're still only second year into your teaching. So yeah, I feel like it's a lot less. It's not taken away completely, but it's sort of reduced a little bit.
That's really good. And do you think it's good that the ECT is 2 years?
Um, I mean, I had a conversation with this with another colleague. He would say he wishes he was a another colleague in my department was very sort of politician, politics mad. And he'd argue that he thought it would still have to be a 1 year. But I think after my first year of teacher training being so disastrous, I'm so glad I've got another year. Um,
Mm.
Despite the fact that I did cover work prior to it, and the fact that I've been in like school my entire life, I feel like I've not left school because I went into cover supervisor as a university student. Um, as because of the disaster of my PGCE year, I'm kind of glad we do have that sort of second year. But I feel like if my PGCE went well, I might not need it. But
Mm.
it,
Your
it's
experience, isn't it, all based on what your
yeah,
knowledge and experiences?
uh, yeah,
I did read, or I don't know whether I spoke to someone, and they said they brought it in because of lockdown, really. I can't
mm,
remember exactly when they started ECT, but I remember in lockdown, like people that were training throughout lockdown, they didn't get a lot of time in the classrooms. So
no,
then they qualified, but then it was like a
yeah.
whirlwind going
I
into an
mean,
actual classroom.
yeah, going back to my second placement when I talked about the person that was sort of 3 years, like the same uni and all that sort of thing. He did his training year in my first year of uni, and my first year of uni was the COVID year. I got kicked out my halls in March of 2020 because that's when it all happened, and that's when he was doing his training year. And he was like, I was linked to a school, but I was doing online teaching, which was just completely not what he signed up to.
No.
Um, and then I think they sort of just fast tracked all of them because they didn't want to miss a year out of teaching. Like
Mm.
newly qualified teachers, like so they sort of fast tracked them all the way through, which I thought was kind of bizarre, but
I wonder what the impact in years to come will be reported
yeah,
and what that will be like, because obviously it was the first, well, not a first, obviously things have happened in the past before, but it was such a worldwide shock and people just tried to manage. So
and
thank
even
you very much.
sorry,
Oh, go on,
I was
carry
about
on.
to say, even for the kids, because like I've got a little sister who's now year 10, but she was year 6 when COVID happened.
Oh, wow.
So she missed out on like the primary school leaving dues and the sort of transition events to the high school. And obviously she's now year 10, about to be year 11, and like now she's about to sit her exams. So it's like I'm trying to work out what effects that will have on her.
Hmm. Whether that, did she ever mention that she was sad she missed different events?
I was sad for her because obviously like there's a big age gap, not less so big, but there's like 8 years between us. So like I remember the leaving primary stuff, and I was like, I loved it, especially because like the year I left was 2012, so it was like my primary school year leaving. It was the Queen's Diamond Jubilee. It was the London Olympics. So like it was all merging into one. We were all celebrating. I remember going on the field and doing parties and stuff.
Oh,
Um, so like my like leaving things for primary school were great because it was just the year of everything happening. But and then my sister didn't get all of that, and I was like, I was sad for her. I don't think she really affected it as much because she didn't really know about it. But as someone who was on the sidelines, because I was at uni at this point, I was like, I'm sad for you.
oh. So to finish off, what advice would you give to early careers teachers?
Make sure you have the support that you need. make sure the people around you are, maybe not even like, strong or what. I'm trying to think of what I'm trying to say, but it's just the support. Like, obviously, I've gone from PGCE where my support wasn't there to then going to the school I've just left at, and it was completely different. Albeit I did have friends around me that were supportive and my family and all that, but it's mainly in the schools. Like, teaching is a hard job. Like, you're not just a teacher anymore. You like a social worker. You've got to sort of, data admin and reports, and you do multiple jobs at once. So it is a hard job, hard occupation. So albeit have friends around you that are not in the subject teaching occupation. Like I've got my friends that, one of them's a PhD doctorate and she's finding that difficult, but I'm like, yeah, it's different context, but so it's good to have friends outside of the teaching world. But I'm now thinking next year I've still got Debbie as a friend, albeit we're at a different school, which said that we're now friends, message me because we know what it's like. And like I said, we're not going to be in the same school, but it's still that support network.
Where can we find you then?
So I'm quite active on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it nowadays. So it's Miss K Hazel. It's got a picture of me as my graduation. You should be able to find it.
And I'll leave your details down below. But thank you very much for sharing your knowledge, sharing your tips, and it's been lovely to chat to you. If you liked today's interview, please make sure to like and also subscribe to see who else I'm chatting to. Thanks so much for watching, and thank you for joining me, Katie.
Thank you.